Hello and welcome. We've had the final patch before early access released today. So we're now at version 0.100, now just waiting for the game to release on Steam. So as always in these videos, we'll go through the updates for this patch, as well as a few other minor updates that have occurred since the last video. Alright, so let's jump into the fleet editor and have a look at the first change. So when we jump in, we can see that the first big noticeable difference is the fact that we now have the wireframes removed and solid boxes displayed for the internal components of each ship. So this is going to help you quickly see whereabouts those components are a little bit easier, as before you were able to see through all the wireframes and each of the wireframes would jostle into each other. So here what we can see is a component that isn't filled will be grey. If it has a component in it, it's going to be orange. And if I move my mouse over it, we're going to highlight it to green. So this also supports and enhances another feature that was already present. When I move my mouse over a mount, a compartment or a module, it's going to highlight on the ship display in the center of the screen. Now this was previously implemented, however with the wireframes it only highlighted the wire and therefore made it hard to pick up, as each of the wireframes got in the way and you couldn't see it very easily. Now as you move down the components, it'll be easy to see within the ship what they look like. So that's the frigate. If we were to jump and look something a little bit more complex like a battleship, we can see that we have a number of components that we're able to very easily see. It's best seen maybe from a horizontal view, but it's all 3D. You can move around and get a really good representation of where that component is going to be. So we can see that if a shot was to come through, we're going to lose that mount. However, it's quite hard to get this module up here or even one of these ones. So placing your components becomes a little bit easier, a little bit more strategic now that we can visually see where the components are a lot better. One of the really nice things that the developer has done for new players is include starter fleets. So if we scroll down, ignoring all my other fleets, we can see the 6 starter fleets that the developer has added. Each of the starter fleets originate from the community, fleets that were either developed or played with by a pre-access member, and then modified and tailored by the developers to give each fleet a different purpose and play style, as well as level of complexity for new players. In addition, all of the fleets now have the option to add a description, so this has to be manually added in the game file at the moment. Here we can see each of the starter fleets have a description which will provide a bit of an understanding to the player as to what it does and some of the tactics you should use. But if I was to go to my dummy fleet, which I use for testing, there's nothing in there. So you're able to go into your Steam file path, which I'll put in the description, go to the fleet file that you want to edit, and by using the description tags that I'll link in the description as well, so that's only available to you. It doesn't go to anyone else during gameplay. However, if you upload that fleet into the Steam workshop, you're going to be able to have other people view that and understand why you built that fleet, what you want to do with it, or even maybe a little bit of background lore that you've come up with yourself. Just a couple quick points changes within the fleet editor. The Mark 61 cannon has been reduced by 10 points, as has the Mark 62. So the Mark 61 is now 10 points and the Mark 62 is 20. Both fire the 120mm ammunition shells. The other change, not necessarily related to points, but structural integrity on the 2 hulls of the battleship, as well as the heavy cruiser. The structural integrity of a hull represents how safe the components within it are. So both hulls have had their structural integrity reduced to encourage the damage on both the battleship and the heavy cruiser, which can sometimes hold out a little bit longer due to the amount of damage that it was able to reduce. So the battleship's gone from 10,000 down to 8,000, and the heavy cruiser goes down from 7,500 to 6,500. Another change has been the update to Chaff. So the logic has been updated, so it should cover now a better spread in a different zone. So as you fire it, it's going to move around the ship a little bit more as opposed to sitting in one location. You can set it to automatic fire. It'll now only engage when the ship is likely to be engaged by a missile. So again, like point defense zone, it'll engage once the ship thinks it's under threat or calculates that it is under threat based on where the missile is, the seeker of the warhead, and the ship itself. So you're not going to waste chaff anymore. A noticeable change on the tactical map, the way that the lines are represented have now been changed in the back end. These appear thicker whilst in the actual game. However, behind the scenes will significantly improve performance by the way that the developer has now used a new method. I could use the technical terms, but that may or may not mean anything to you. Just note that the game's a little bit more optimized as you come into early access. A slight improvement to the sphere widget. The sphere widget will now maintain the size of the last widget when setting a waypoint. So we go weapons, selecting a missile. If I expand and then set a waypoint holding shift, we can see it maintains the same size. And if I make it smaller, holding shift to set another waypoint, it's going to maintain the same size. This will make it easier when setting waypoints, as you won't have to consistently move back to the sphere that you were using, and be a little bit more comfortable going forward as you know exactly how big that sphere is when you place that next waypoint. So the final updates we have is to the completion of the weapons control fire order. So we have free, hold, and tight, which is tight being the default. So if weapons control is set to hold, if we select the enemy and fire our guns, we can see that the ship and the cannon will track the enemy ship. However, it will not actually engage. If we also fire a Thunderhead missile, we can see that the missile order is also queued up, however will not engage. If we set this to tight, we can see that the ship commences fire and the missile is launched. All weapon commands that are fired under tight will allow you to engage any of the enemies. So here, if we set our weapons control to free, when we are engaged by enemy ships, then our turrets and jammers will gauge the targets that are shooting at us. However, no missiles will be fired. Alright, well that's it for this game update. I hope you've enjoyed the game updates series so far. We'll continue to do them post early access release. It's not that far away, a couple more days. So head across to the Steam store or to the Discord where you can interact with the community as well as the developers who are fairly active.